instead of
Okay.
tentative.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started then. This training I've planned for about an hour and a half. I seriously doubt it'll take that long. If you have any questions, you can type them into the chat, or there is I think there's a raise hand option in Teams. And we might be able to take some live questions, but your best bet is to type questions into the chat, and please ask questions. And then the exit slip will also give you the opportunity to ask any questions that may not have gotten answered. So I'll be able to answer those for you as well. Excuse me. So again, thank you for your time. I know there's a lot going on, and I appreciate you all taking time out of your COVID craziness, and just sort of listening to what we have to say. We really appreciate everything you guys are doing. We know that you're overworked and just exhausted and stressed and all of that, and we just really appreciate you and everything you're doing for kids in Kentucky. And we appreciate your patience with us as we're trying to figure things out as well on our end. We're all kind of learning together. Okay, so the first thing I want to point out is the KDE data standards. The first link goes to the special education data standards. And the second one goes to all data standards, including the special education one. For everything we do in Infinite Campus, there's a data standard. So if you have questions about attendance or enrollment or anything, personnel, whatever, there's a data standard for it. And if you go to that link, or if you just go to the KDE website and search for data standards, you'll see standards for everything. So I have some people saying they can't hear me, but it looks like most people can. So okay.
They've got directions in the chat box.
Perfect.
What to do, so just keep going.
Just keep going. Sorry, I'm trying to wear all hats.
Just keep going.
I appreciate everyone's help. Stacy Liguori is also helping, it looks like. So thank you, Stacy. I appreciate that. So we're going to jump right into reporting because your time is short, and I want to make sure we get all relevant information to you. So I think most people have heard that there are going to be some changes, not really changes to child count, but changes to how we collect child count. And I'm going to talk more about that. You still have your IDEA December 1 count extract. I sent out an email yesterday about that, and unfortunately it's not working 100%. We do have another one we're working on now. This one will be fixed by mid-November, but it's not any kid who has an evaluation due between now and December 1st is not showing up for whatever reason, but that is being fixed, and it will get fixed. But the QA SPED report is working, is pulling all kids, I believe. So that's probably your best bet if you want to make sure you have all kids on there. And then the second report I'll talk about later, but this is where we're going to post the data that we have for your district, and you're going to compare what you have to what we have to make sure they're equal, or just look at what we have and see if you feel like it's accurate or if there are kids missing. Indicator 11 and 13 is due June 30th, as well as a Safe Schools report. Personnel data is submitted in GMAP, and it's due July 1st. I think it opens up sometime in May, and you submit it July 1st. And then July 30th, the exiting data is due. Okay, so let's talk about child count. So these are the things you need to know about child count. In order for a student to appear on child count, all of these things must be true. And the best news about 2020, because we haven't had a lot of good news, is that December 1st is not on a Saturday or a Sunday, because that has caused us all kinds of grief in the last 2 years. So it's on a Tuesday this year, I believe. So the student has to be enrolled in the district on the child count date. And the student has to have an active and locked IEP in the district on the child count date. It could also be marked inactive, active or inactive. But it had to have been active on December 1st. And the student has to have a completed locked Kentucky evaluation eligibility determination dated less than 3 years before the child count date. So those 3 things have to be true. If there is a student that is enrolled in 2 different districts on December 1st, which happens, we'll look at the latest enrollment date. So if they're enrolled, if they leave one district in the morning and go to another district in the afternoon, the student is going to count on the district where they ended the day. Hopefully there aren't too many of those, but okay. This is a big one. In order for the student to count on the child count report, they must be actively enrolled in a non-excluded calendar within the district on the effective date. So if you have students enrolled in an excluded calendar or an excluded grade level that are receiving services, you need to enroll them in a non-excluded calendar in another school with a non-excluded calendar, so that that student can be recognized. It's okay. It's okay if the enrollment is marked state exclude, if the individual student's enrollment is marked state exclude, but they may not be in an excluded calendar. We've been training this since last year because it's the only way that we know which kids to count. Student's IEP must overlap the effective date, so the start date has to be on or before December 1st. It has to end on or after December 1st. The status has to be A, AR, or I. If it's ER, the student won't show up. We recommend that if you're gonna end date, if you're gonna mark a student inactive, or ER, that you amend the IEP and mark the amended IEP ER and leave the other one active. That way you won't have this problem. The IEP has to be locked and it has to have a primary disability. If the student is DD, he can't be older than 8. He or she may not be older than 8. And it has to have an LRE setting. Evaluation, the evaluation has to be good 3 years minus 1 day prior to the child count date. So it has to be good before the child, still be good before the child count date. Okay, so for out-of-state students, this is a question I get usually starting about this time of year. When kids are moving in from out of state, I don't know how much that's happening this year, if it's more or less, or neither. If a student is moving in from out of state and you want to get that student in the system to count on child count, because you should be providing services for that student if he comes in with an IEP. You're going to create a Kentucky Evaluation Eligibility Determination document using the information from the sending state. And it can be sort of a skeleton document just with the necessary information. Just make sure you document in there that this is, to see the other evaluation and upload it into Infinite Campus, or, just say that it's for child count purposes and the information is in another document somewhere. And then you're going to create a valid IEP document based on the information from the sending states using those dates. And again, document, where the IEP is from the other state, and that this is for child count purposes. So then the district is required to complete a Kentucky evaluation, an initial evaluation, within 60 school days. So when you do that, you are going to create a new Kentucky evaluation eligibility determination document. You're not going to use the old one. That one has to stay in place because it's the one that the December 1 child count is looking at. So you're going to create a new one, and you're also going to create a new IEP. You're going to leave the old one alone and create a new one. So there has to be a Kentucky evaluation dated before the child count date, within 3 years before. And PDFs are not recognized by the child count report or any other reports for that matter. So you need to be careful of that. I see that a lot. Okay, so this is another issue that has come up, and I have Sylvia here in the room with me who can help if she needs to, she can jump in. Okay, so we have heard from some districts that there is sort of a backlog of evaluations that are due.
COVID.
Yeah, due to COVID. This is only because of COVID that we're allowing this. But basically what we're hearing is there are a lot of new initial evaluations that need to take place, but there are also a lot of reevals that need to take place. And understandably, the district has prioritized the new evaluations. They don't want to keep from providing services, right? And for the reevaluations, they can continue to provide services based on the current IEP. So here's what we've done for this. We've talked this through. So what you're going to do is you still have to, if the evaluation is more than 3 years old, the student won't show up on child count. So you're going to have to create an evaluation that is within 3 years of child count, of December 1. So you're going to create a new Kentucky evaluation eligibility determination document. And this is only if you have a student that you cannot get reevaluated prior to December 1. You're going to use the disability from the previous evaluation. And you're going to, I would say, use the date you created the document, just so it's within 3 years. The evaluation type, I want you to use transferred. And I'll explain why in a few minutes, but I want you to use transferred for the evaluation type. So this is basically just as if you were creating a new evaluation for a student moving in from out of state. It's kind of what we're doing. You're gonna, when possible, if you can determine eligibility for a record using a record review, I would recommend doing that. Or do the best you can. And then if you have to, say in there, we're going to determine eligibility now, but then we're going to meet again when possible, go ahead and do that.
So programmatically, it is okay for districts to determine, we realize that with COVID, you're going to have a backlog and that a lot of districts have that situation. The most important thing that we're trying to make sure that we do here is to make sure that the limitations of Infinite Campus aren't excluding children who are receiving services. The most important thing for us to do is to continue services, provide all that information to students, and we are working on a workaround for Infinite Campus. And Amy's going to tell you, kind of walk you through what that workaround looks like, how you do it. But it's really important that you're able to continue providing services for kids and that you're able to get paid for the kids that you're providing services for. We want those children to get counted on your December 1 child count. We want you to get credit for them because you are doing the work. It is okay for districts to prioritize when you're looking at your backlog of evaluations due to COVID. There's lots of ways that you can prioritize that, and that's a district level decision. I have heard some districts say that they're prioritizing students whose evaluations are either, really far behind, or they're prioritizing students with developmental delay because those kids are going to age out. There's also a workaround for that as well that we'll talk you through in just a few minutes. But we also want you to know that that we're here for you, we understand, and that we're going to give you this workaround so that you know what to do in those situations.
So we did get a question about DD, and honestly, can you speak to that?
So when and what we'll do is, I think too, before we go into the basics of how to build a shell and how to do all of those things, it's important to remember that if a student is being reevaluated and you're able to do a review of records, it's likely you could clear out your backlog if you're able to go and do a review of records. There's a couple of ways that you can do that. As long as you have enough information to determine eligibility, you may have to go back if you've already received consent for a full evaluation, to go back and talk to the parent and say, hey, listen, we know we got consent for a full evaluation, but we actually need to move forward differently because we got consent back in August, and then COVID happened and we had no idea what we were getting into at that point. And so at this point, we'd like to move forward with a review of records to continue eligibility. There could be some cases where you're able to get all the information that you need off of a review of records. And that's the goal, right? Is if you have enough information. There may be other cases where you can get enough to determine eligibility, but you still feel like maybe an evaluation is warranted to get some updated data about the student to help you develop a really solid IEP. It's okay to say, we have enough information to determine eligibility, but as soon as COVID is done, we're going to come back and look at it another time because we think that we want to just get a little bit more information as soon as we can. If you do that, you're going to want to track the kids that you said that for some way. Each district can go about that kind of however they want to, but you're going to want to make sure that you're taking note of whoever you build a shell for or whoever you do a review of records and say we're going to come back in a year, to make sure that the district actually follows through on those promises that they're making for parents, because we don't want you to end up in a situation where you're in a dispute. In terms of students who are typical not DD kids, right? So any kind of student that is a reevaluation, like I said, we would tell you, try your best to get them in a review of records. If you can't do that, or you really desperately need all the information from the evaluation, we would encourage you to, move forward with the evaluation. And we know that it might be lagged, and that's okay in COVID. But the best case scenario is to build a shell just like you would if it was an out-of-state student that transferred on December 1. And you don't have all the information in the records that you need yet. So we'll do that. In the case of a student who is developmentally delayed, and I'll be honest, it's a little bit of it's not the prettiest way to go about it, but the best way to go about building a shell for a student who is DD. The problem is that the system kicks you out no matter what you put. So if you built a shell that says DD, because the student is 9, it will automatically exclude them. And so you will have to choose a different disability category. We realize that's not pretty, and it's not exactly how we would want to proceed in most cases. However, it's really your only option to ensure that the student still gets counted. So the best way to do that is to choose, when you're building the shell, the disability that you are evaluating for. So if you feel like the student is most likely to become DD to SLD, then you would choose to put SLD in that. If you are, evaluating for OHI, you would choose OHI. It depends on what you're evaluating for. If you're evaluating for emotional behavior disorder, then you would put emotional behavior disorder, whatever is closest to how you think the eligibility might happen. And then once you get the information and the evaluation is complete, you can keep the shell in there, but replace by adding in your new information, and it will, is that right? Tell me if I'm wrong. When you add in your new evaluation, it will end date the other one and get you the information that you need. But the shell will, you have to, the details of all of that. Amy will tell you the details of how all that happens, but the new one will basically take over the old one, but you don't want to delete it out.
Okay. So again, just make sure you document all this. If anything is out of the ordinary, if you're creating a skeleton document or a shell document or whatever you want to call it, I'm asking that you put that in the multidisciplinary report so that we know where to go to look if we, if we're looking for that. And And then again, the IEP, if the IEP is expired, create a new one using the newly created Kentucky evaluation. And Sylvia covered most of this. Again, use transferred for the evaluation type, and document in the present levels in the first section that this is a skeleton. So, and then again, if you don't feel like your reevaluation is complete, you're doing the best you can, but then make sure you go back and do a new reevaluation if possible.
So Tammy, she said, thank you for this option. However, what about a parent who has stated they won't bring a student in for a scheduled reevaluation because of fears around the pandemic? Their evaluation includes a cognitive assessment, and she says she sees how we can work around for child count here, but we still won't be able to do the evaluation after child count. I think yes, that you can. You get the evaluation when you could. Document your good faith efforts. There's lots of options if parents won't bring them in. I would encourage you to call me kind of directly, and we can kind of talk through some creative options. And if those still don't work out, then you do what you can. You get the evaluation when you can, done when you can, and the shell will hold you over until you can get it done.
Yep.
Good question.
That's what I was going to say too. Okay.
But Tammy, if you want to talk through that situation specifically with me, I'd be happy to have a call with you later. Just email me if that's what you'd like.
Okay, some common errors we see in child count if a kid isn't showing up. Status, disability, or setting is blank. Status is something other than A, AR, or I. You have PDFs instead of actual documents. LRE and age mismatch. So I also sent out an email about this yesterday. 5-year-olds in kindergarten should have an LRE code beginning with 6. Infinite Campus knows that, but the error report does not. So the error report is showing those as a warning. I apologize. I realize some people came back and said, but we've already gone back and changed them because Infinite Campus told us it was wrong, and I am so sorry. They do need to be, they need to have an LRE of 6, starting with 6, 6A, 6B, 6C. And they will still show up on the report because that's a warning, and warnings mean they'll still show up on the report. So, and that is being fixed as well. I imagine that fix probably will occur the same time as the others in mid-November. Here's my public service announcement that you see every year. Infinite Campus is the authoritative source for all student information. So make sure we will not count students that don't show up in our reports in Infinite Campus. So make sure if you make any changes, make sure they're made in Infinite Campus and not like outside, because, well, now we're pulling most of the data ourselves, so they have to be accurate. It has to be accurate in Infinite Campus. Okay, so for the cleanup, students have to be ages 3 to 21.
Before you go on, there's a question that says, what about the 5-year-olds in pre-K?
5-year-olds in pre-K should still have an LRE beginning with 3. Thank you. Age and grade should be an appropriate match. So this is one that you're not going to find an error for anywhere, but it messes us up. It's typically students who have been receiving services like private school students, and we've seen students who started receiving services in 1st grade and are now in 10th grade, but are still showing up as 1st graders. So they might be 15 years old, but they're still showing up as 1st graders because they never changed the grade. And that really throws us off. We have a lot of 5-year-olds who are showing up as grade 96. That also messes us up because when we're looking for 5-year-olds in preschool, we're looking for grade 99. So just try to just look over those and make sure those match. All preschool students should have an LRA that begins with 3. All students in grades K through 14 should have an LRA beginning with 6. Please ensure demographic data is correct. So at the end of the year, when we are looking at determinations at indicators 9, 10, significant disproportionality, if you're showing that a student is multiple races and that student causes you to be pulled for indicators 9, 10, significant disproportionality, and then you come back to us and say, wait, that student isn't races, that student is Hispanic, or that student is African American, or whatever. If it's reported on Safe Schools, if it's reported on Child Count as being multiple races, the student is multiple races for this year's data. If you want to change it for next year, you have to have that information. You have to get that permission from the parent. The parent needs to be, causing you to do that. But if it needs to be changed for the next year, that's fine. But the way it's reported on Child Count is the way it's going to be. And then ensure that all overlapping enrollments are resolved. So we started running Child Count just to see what kinds of things we were looking at this year. We started running it about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and there were a lot of overlapping enrollments where a kid had started the school year in one district and then started the school year or whatever, enrolled in another district, but the first one was never indated. So you just need to make sure that if a student has left, you've indated the enrollment. So, and we're gonna, I'll be contacting you with some issues about this, and there are gonna be some error checks along the way to help you with this.
There's a couple of questions about private school service plan. The first one says, for private school plan, the only option for SPED setting is 6J, even for our preschool students.
That's a preschool question. So I talked to preschool about this, and they were in agreement because really there are no private school service plans for preschool.
That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
And then they said the IC Child Count report is showing LRE errors for kindergarten students with the 6-week series LRE codes. Will this report be updated or just ignore the warning?
Just ignore the warning. That's what I was talking about earlier.
And then Kim said that it would be fixed in the campus release. And then somebody said for students that are on the private school side, kindergarten and up, they have been entered in the preschool enrollment to prevent scheduling gaps. Should they be enrolled in another area?
I'm not sure I understand that one.
Maybe just email.
Yeah, you might just want to email me with that one because I'm not sure that I completely understand that question. I think it's probably more complicated than a quick answer here anyway. So, okay, some helpful reports in Infinite Campus that you might want to know about. The first one is the QA SPED report. This is under Kentucky State Reporting, KDE reports. If you don't have access to this, you should have access to this. So talk to your KSYS administrator. We are in the process of updating the detail report. And the detail report, let me see if I can find one for you. I apologize for the, there it is. The detail report is going to have some things added. We have changed it. It used to be that there was one column for each disability. And now we've condensed that so that the primary disability is only one column. So it will say MMD or SLD or whatever. We've added, or we're going to add, the IEP begin date and end date. We're working on adding the evaluation due date. That's a little bit trickier, but we're going to add that. We're looking at adding case manager. And then we're also talking about adding a column for if the evaluation type was type transferred. So these students that you're creating the skeletons for, if you enter transferred as the type, that'll be flagged so that you probably should go back and check on those kids again and see, just review and make sure everything is up to date and you don't need to do any more assessments with them. It also has information about assessments, disability with IEP, disability with IEP not alternate, disability with accommodations, disability alternate only. So there's a lot of good information there that'll help you with your alternate assessment. These are all based on data from the Office of Assessment and Accountability. It lists the least restrictive environment.
Do you know when the updates to the QA SPED detail report will be completed?
They're working. I had a meeting about it right before this. So they're working on it now. I would imagine in the next week or two.
Probably sooner than that, but yeah.
Yay, thank you, Kim. You're awesome. Okay, cool. All right. So that is the detail report. You also have the SPED exit report, the QA SPED exit report. Error report. The error report, and I don't have an example of this, but I've shown it to you before. It will actually show you and highlight areas where maybe an IEP is unlocked. So students who aren't showing up on child count, the error report should tell you why. The IEP is unlocked. There's a disability missing. It'll also show you overlapping IEPs. And by the way, while we're talking about overlapping IEPs, something else that's not working is the auto end feature in Infinite Campus. And that, as far as I can tell, just occurred within the last week or two. So they are aware of it, but you just need to be aware. I would recommend dating the previous IEP if you're creating a new one. If you don't, and it's only overlapping a couple of days, it's annoying. It's not the end of the world. It might mess up a few things on some reports, but I wouldn't go back and redo them if you have a bunch. But if it's just one or two, it wouldn't be a bad idea. The aggregate report will just give you counts of students for QA SPED. I'm really excited about this detail report. I think it's going to be really useful for you. Okay. Our new report is called, it's also under KY State Reporting KDE reports. And it's called the IDEA December 1 Federal Submission Validation Report. That's a mouthful. But basically what it's going to do is we are going to run child count. And I'll show you the timeline in a little while. We're going to run child count and we're going to put the data that we have in that report. And then you're going to run the report and you're going to say, yeah, these kids are all the ones that are supposed to be reported, or these kids are not supposed to be reported. And so that's the way, so that way, the good news about that is you will see exactly what gets reported from us to the federal government, to the budgets people for your funding, everything. That, I believe, currently you can go back and review the 2019 and the 2018 reports. Those are not up for debate at this point because the data's already been finalized and reported, but you can go back and see what we submitted for those for your district. Another report that we have.
Should you be able to see that one now?
No, for this school year, you should not be able to. For the previous 2 school years, yes. Another report we have is alternate assessment tracking. So that's the report that you can run, and it's also under the same KY State Reporting KDE reports, that will show you, based on students' IEPs, which students are eligible for alternate assessment based on the participation guidelines in the IEP. And you can actually run that for previous years as well. It used to only run like when you ran it, it was just currently. But they've changed it and now you can run it for previous years. So that's kind of exciting. So you can go back and look and see the progress we've made as far as, you know, making sure it's equitable.
All right, there's a question that says, one of my special ed teachers called and is getting an info notation in the reevaluation data on her caseload view. It states something about the date of eligibility not being entered. I've checked the information and run the QA report, but no errors were found regarding these students. A ticket was put in with IC last week, but it's still not showing resolved. We
have heard that throughout the school year, like from several people. We've not really been able to track down what's causing it. Thank you for putting in a ticket. If anybody else has that, please also put in a ticket. If you want to email me the SSID and the teacher's name, we can follow up as well and put in a ticket. We have heard that from other people, and I don't know what's causing it, but it could have something to do with the same error that we're having with child count. So I don't know. But thank you for making me aware of that. Okay, the QA SPED report, I've already talked about this. We've updated to consolidate all disabilities to one column. We've added caseload managers. We're trying to get in the due date for the next evaluation. If the evaluations are not locked, we're not going to be able to get that, just so you know. We've added a column to flag evaluations of type transferred, and we've added IEP begin and end dates. Okay, the moment we've all been waiting for, the child count process. So here's what we're hoping to do this year, and this could be really exciting and wonderful and great, but this is 2020, so we're keeping an open mind and realizing that, you know, things happen. So this report, the IDEA December 1 Federal Submission Validation Report, will show you an exact copy of KDE's data that we have for your district for child count. It'll first be populated in early November. Normally, I think we would probably start this process a little bit earlier, but because of some errors that we're running into, and we're still sort of working on this, and the IC errors, we're not going to be able to do this until early November. And we are going to be refreshing this weekly. So we're going to run it basically on Monday morning, first thing. So any changes you make need to be done by Friday. And then we'll run it on, and then you can compare your data to what we have, or just look at what we have and say, yeah, this looks right, this doesn't, you know, send our report to your people and have them validate it. And then our goal is to refresh this weekly, and then by the Sunday after December 15th, preferably before, if possible, we're hoping to have the report completed so that you guys can go and do your jobs and live your lives and not have to worry about messing up things in child count. Because this is a statewide report, so if we have to keep running it for 1 or 2 errors, it also refreshes everybody else's data. And we all know that things happen in special education, and, you know, IEPs get unlocked and people, you know, transfer from one district to another and crazy things happen. And so, you know, we would like to get this wrapped up so that the data is as accurate as possible as of December 1. Any questions about that? No questions. Okay. I hope you guys like this. Like, I'm hoping, I know it's different and a little bit scary, but I'm also thinking that it could be a really good thing because, number one, it'll wrap things up more quickly. And number two, you're going to see exactly what we have. So there won't be any questions, right? You guys don't have to come back to me and say, can you tell me how many of these we had or whatever? Because you've got that data for you, for yourself in Infinite Campus. Okay, so that's child count. I'm going to move on to personnel and placement. And what I'm going to tell you about this is as of December 1st. So the personnel data and the placement data that we collect is as of December 1. However, this data does not get submitted until GMAP opens in May. And it's not due until July 1st. So I will send out a spreadsheet where you can enter the data and just hold on to it. And I'm going to send that out sometime in the next few weeks.
Will they submit it on the secure server?
No, it's only submitted in, which child count?
I don't know. Greta, which one are you wanting to know about whether or not you submit on the secure server? Child count.
No, but I will send out a survey, just like I do with the other reports, that says, yes, I certify that my data is accurate to the best of my knowledge, kind of thing.
What day will you run the final child count?
I'm hoping the 12/20/20, December 20th, the Monday after December 15th. But if everybody certifies before then, but I doubt that's going to happen.
So the Monday after December 15th?
Yes.
21st of December.
Oh, 21st. Yep. But we're going to be running it every week, starting in November. Is that, I don't want to cause any anxiety here, so please feel free to ask questions. No? Okay, I'm going to move on. Oh.
Okay, if we certify by 12/8, could we verify the data using the validation report and consider it finished?
I would love to say yes, but the problem is it would have to be the entire state that was certifying that, because when we run the report, it's for the entire state.
They also said in May, you said on 12/7 you were going to report.
Yeah, well.
You'd run it, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to run it. Yeah. I'm going to run it every Monday. So what I'm saying is have your data ready by 12/7, and then if everybody can validate by then we're good. But I don't think we can run it just for one district and not for everyone.
I don't think so either, but I'll find out.
Okay.
Will the report be divided by schools, or will it be easy to send separate and send out to schools for verification?
I think you can run it just for the school. And there's an aggregate and there's an aggregate report, and then there's also a detail report. But the school will be listed in there, but I think you might be able to run it just for the school.
Will we need to keep validating every Monday up until December 21st?
I will have to check on that. That's a really good question. But I think that goes back to what Kim's researching.
And I would say if you're running on Monday, it's probably best for them to validate on Friday, or do you want them to validate
I want
on
them
the same Monday?
On Monday.
On Monday.
If they want to, check our data.
Mm-hmm.
Wait time is awkward. Are we good?
You're good.
Okay. Okay, so back to the personnel and placement. So I will send out a spreadsheet that you can put your data in and just hold on to it. And then the spreadsheet looks pretty much exactly like what's in GMAP, so you can just transfer the data over. Just type it in from the spreadsheet to GMAP. So we began submitting the data in GMAP in 2017-18. We report data on special education teachers, paraprofessionals, and related service providers. I also, when I sent out this PowerPoint to everyone, I also sent out there were 3 documents that help explain how to count teachers, paraprofessionals, and related service providers. That was taken from our file specifications. And I just kind of pulled out the parts that were relevant for you guys. So you might want to take a look at those if you have any questions, and I'm happy to answer them. So for personnel, we look at special education teachers, and we look at them as certified and not fully certified. Same thing with related service providers, and then paraprofessionals is qualified and not qualified. And so for FTE, we look at the percent of time each person works specifically with students with disabilities receiving special education and related services. You're going to round to the nearest hundredth. It's 2 decimal places. If a teacher works with both students with disabilities and students without disabilities, report only the portion of the FTE spent with students with disabilities providing services for those students. I don't have that there, but.
They're saying, please continue to send the worksheet with the child count. It makes it so much easier to document when you do it all together.
Okay, good to know. I've had people tell me not to, but I think if I'll send it, and if you don't want it, don't use it. I think that's the best way to do it. Okay, so here's an example of how you can look at personnel. So teacher 1 works with students with disabilities for 3 hours out of a 6-hour day. So her FTE would be 0.5. And then you've got teacher 2, so you only have 2 teachers. Teacher 2 works with students with disabilities for 4 hours out of a 6-hour day. So that's 0.67. And then you add those together and you get 1.17 FTE. So you're looking at the percent for each teacher. And then you're going to enter that data into, this is just a screenshot of the spreadsheet that I'm going to send you guys. So you're just going to enter children. Please just make sure you're putting things in the right spaces. Like, make sure where it says fully certified, you don't get those mixed up with not fully certified. Because we've had that happen before, and it causes some craziness. So children 3 through 5, teachers for children ages 3 through 5 who are fully certified, you put that in here, not fully certified here, and then it'll calculate it for you. And so you're going to fill that out all the way down. And then we also have to calculate placement. And placement is, this is to help you understand how much you have to allocate for private school proportionate amount. So that's what that's in here for.
Explain further regarding IECE teachers, please. Are they considered special ed?
IECE, is that like early childhood?
Early childhood teachers that serve as both regular and special ed teachers. They're dual certified.
Well, if they're not providing special education services specifically, I don't believe they're special ed.
Why don't we reach out to let's reach out to Andrea and be sure, and then we'll send that out in an email.
Good idea. Okay. Yep, we'll send that out in an email. Okay, some other updates in Infinite Campus. Progress monitoring. There is a goal monitoring feature in Infinite Campus right now. It has to be like people have to be granted rights to it, but it's in Infinite Campus. It's in like the special ed module for Infinite Campus. So right now it allows, so it pulls in goals from the IEP, and then you can log updates for those goals. So there's a place for you to do that. In the future, we're hoping to provide print and graphing capabilities. Those are not available yet. They wanted to see how it was going to be used, whether it was working for people. They just wanted to kind of gather some information about it and make sure it was useful. And from what I'm hearing, people are pretty excited about it. I think if we could get graphing and printing, people would be really excited about it. So if you want more information, if you go into Campus Community and you go to the knowledge base and type in goal monitoring, there's some videos there. There's a lot of information in there about it. So CGIC continues to meet, and they've been rock stars through this whole COVID thing. Like, I have had to call I don't know how many emergency meetings about things, and they're ready and willing to help. So I really appreciate them. And so if you have any questions or concerns or suggestions, I would recommend contacting your CGIC members, and these are the members we have.
Any date for graphing and printing being available?
Not yet.
Hold on, there's a couple of them, but okay. I think that one was Joni's still question about the preschool one. We also have a school psychologist who's contracted to do our reports only. How do I count him? There isn't really a firm percentage.
Estimate.
Yeah.
That's the best I can say.
Music therapists are not listed on the sheet, but we contract one for special ed services. Can we put them on the staff count for the percent of time they service our IEP students?
That's a question probably for Chris. I'll have to ask that. So music therapists?
It's Tammy Bizzotti.
Okay.
Tammy, we'll look into it and get back with you on music therapy.
Yep, we will. Okay. Yeah, so for progress monitoring, we're still, I hope to talk to them soon, because I know there have been a lot of issues with some third-party software that was providing goal monitoring features and now are not, and I know that there's a lot going on there. So I would really like to encourage them to speed that up a little bit. So if you have any suggestions about what you'd like to see or any questions about it, if you could contact maybe your CGIC member, just send them an email and they can forward it on to me. That would be great. And that way we can talk to Infinite Campus about it when we meet with them next month.
Amanda has a question about how creating shell evaluations would impact districts who receive desk audits or for their comparison files. Amanda, are you talking about indicators 9 and 10? And then the question was, will KDE exclude students for review? Good. Yes. Okay. If they do not have a current eval, but a shell has been created, we are very aware that there are situations where, you know, that first of all, we told you to make the shell, right? So that will come into play. If I think in terms of KDE review, what we're looking for is good faith effort, right? So if you are unable to get evaluations done but you've tried everything you could to try and get parents to come in, you haven't missed any steps, you're trying everything, you've documented everything, you're not going to have problems with any kind of compliance review. We told you to do that. And so we want you to proceed like that. In terms of excluding students for review, it's hard for me to say like a solid yes or no. It'll depend on the situation, but the good part about a shell is once you complete that evaluation, it will then come back up. We won't be looking at dates on shells in terms of evaluations. I know it automatically dates you out and pushes those things out, but when you do the actual evaluation, it'll reset those. So when we're talking about like, did you have the evaluation done by the timeline, we won't be looking at that shell because we know that it doesn't have the information that you need for it to have. And so, like I said, it'll depend on the situation. I think we'll have those conversations on a case-by-case basis and see if it's appropriate to exclude a student based on what happened or not. But I do want to say very clearly, we are understanding. We know that you're up against a wall. We gave you the solution, and we're not going to use that against you. So we're never going to say, hey, you used this shell and now you're in trouble because we told you to use that shell. But I want you to feel confident that we understand. And so she's asking, if you're verifying eligibility requirements met, would you be reviewing an evaluation that was more than 3 years prior? I'm not sure I understand that. Like,
So are you going to look at 4-year-old evaluations if that's the most recent?
yeah, if that's the most, whatever the most recent that you have is, I wouldn't hold it against you if it was older than that, because you didn't have much of a choice in the situation. And so if we need to look at your older evaluations to get the information and to review eligibility, that's what we'll do. 9 and 10 actually pulls from students who were evaluated within the last year, so we shouldn't be looking at any evaluations. When we look at how we pull the data and determine who's going to get reviewed for that, we look at students who were evaluated within that last school year. And the shell would not be something we would exclude based on that shell. If that's all you have in there as a shell, we'll be able to tell whether there's an actual evaluation. And so if that's the case, we'll double check when we're doing indicator 12 reviews for pulls next year to make sure we're not doing that. And if we miss one, because it's possible and actually quite likely that we might, with all of the things we go through for 10 and as many students as it is, if we were to miss one, please email us and let us know, hey, this kid is a shell, we still don't have it finished, or there was a situation. And we will be happy to discuss that with you and figure out how to move forward. If we missed one, we'll fix it. And so just, I want you to hear me say, like, we understand, we're here for you, we're going to be flexible, and we're going to work through it kind of however we can. But don't stress out about that kind of stuff, because we don't want you to feel like this is going to put you in a compliance nightmare. I am very aware that this is abnormal and it may cause some compliance issues on the back end, but we will work through those. We understand those, we will work through those, and we're not going to hold those against you, because like I said at the beginning of all of this, the most important thing is that we provide services to students without interruption, right? So if Infinite Campus is causing us trouble, we don't want to make programming decisions for students based on what Infinite Campus's limitations are. We realize it has some limitations. Just keep doing what's right by kids and you'll be fine. So we're going to be looking for that more than we're going to be looking for like, oh, your shell was dated, et cetera, et cetera. So just hear me say we are going to be flexible. I'm very committed to that. Thanks, Amanda, for asking the question. I appreciate it. It was a good question.
Any other questions?
No, not yet.
Okay. So, I realize everybody's stressed out, and this whole new child count thing is probably not ideal because it's new, but I really do think in the long run it's going to be helpful. And I think we're going to appreciate it. I just think, it's new. So if you have any questions, you know how to get a hold of me. We're trying to help. We're trying to ease your mind, but I know everybody's stressed out right now. So just, do the best you can, keep asking questions, and we'll help. All right, well, I'm gonna close off for now. It's been, I think, about an hour. So, can you post that link?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you want ELA credit, I have created a survey. It's an exit slip. So if you complete the exit slip, and make sure your email address is accurate in the exit slip, we'll send you an ELA certificate. So Sylvia is going to post that in the chat.
It's posted.
And we're recording this, so I'll be posting this online. So if you have other people you want to watch it, feel free to have them watch it. And if we need to have a follow-up closer to December 1, I'm happy to do that. So thank you all for your time, and I appreciate it.